Let's bring in our guests, criminal defense attorney Brian Silber and Rachel Kugel. Rachel, when you're hearing the girlfriend on the stand, does she come across as someone that the judge can agree that what she is saying is factual? Because she's really the one who puts Breasia in his care rather than just wandering off in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I think she's a very credible witness. And, again, unlike a child witness that we heard in the previous segment, this is an adult who remembers very well, certainly something, big and important that occurred in her life. So I think she presents very credible. I don't think she presents with any, motive to lie or particular hate or love for any individual related in this case. So I think she's a very good witness for the state and a very damning witness for the defense.
Brian, I want to play just a little bit more of her testimony from yesterday where she talks about what she saw that night, and I'll get your reaction to it on the other side.
What was his reaction to seeing you sitting up?
He was kind of surprised, kind of shocked.
Okay. Was there any dialogue that you initiated with Mr. Dinkins?
I tried.
Tell us about that.
I was like, what's going on? Where are you going? What's going on? And he's like, I'll be back. And about the time we're talking, he's inside the room in the closet grabbing something. What is he grabbing? I do not know. But while he's grabbing that, I looked out the window and saw Breasia outside of the car. So now my heart's like, okay. She is with him, she's safe, but yeah, it just seemed weird to me, but I didn't know what to say.
Brian, is this enough for a judge at the point that we're at right now? What you already mentioned about the defendant kind of not going to the police right away in a missing persons case, and also his girlfriend placing an alive Breasia with him in the middle of the night. Does that get us to murder?
I think it's very bad evidence for the defense. And, let's address the pink elephant in the room. This judge knows he's a sex offender, okay? Had he gone to jury trial, that's something that the jury would have never known about. If he testified, they would hear that he had a conviction, that he's maybe convicted of a crime, but they would not have learned that he was a sex offender. That would have been inadmissible character evidence. But the judge knows, okay? And to be perfectly honest, this is behavior that might be in line with that. Maybe he sexually abused her, sexually assaulted her, raped her in the night, and then got rid of her knowing that he would get in trouble. It's very bizarre to have this child outside at 3 o'clock in the morning with no explanation, the guy's sneaking around. It's not like there was a medical emergency and he's like, oh, Breasia's in trouble, she's sick, she's throwing up, we got to take her to the emergency room, or she got injured, who knows? None of that. It's just without explanation, and I fully expect this man will be convicted. And you know what? He knows it too.
And then the next morning, Rachel, he wakes up and acts like he doesn't know anything, that she's just disappeared and is nowhere to be found, are the words that he told her mother. I mean, this is just hard to stomach in terms of what happened to this little girl. And oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's all very strange, of course, hard to stomach. And if I could just, play devil's advocate for the purpose of the conversation this morning, a lot of what we're talking about here is maybe, right? Maybe he, sexually assaulted her. This is weird. That doesn't make sense. And I of course, agree with all of that. It's all strange, right? But proof beyond a reasonable doubt is more than maybe, right? And the defendant doesn't have to prove anything, right? He's under no obligation to prove necessarily what he was doing or where he was going, or provide an explanation necessarily. And again, I think what we're seeing, and it may have been a Hail Mary pass, right? But I think what we're seeing is the reason that the defense chose a bench trial here is because there is no question that in front of a jury, all this maybe would have definitely been enough. Right? But perhaps, again, just for the purpose of the conversation, playing devil's advocate here, perhaps they're hoping as a Hail Mary that, the judge will understand that maybe isn't enough. And again, it's a long shot, but I think we're seeing, just in terms of why did they make that decision? What was the strategy? I think we're getting kind of a bird's eye view into why they chose it. I don't know that it's going to work, but I think it was a Hail Mary to say, well, in front of a jury, this case is over. In front of a judge, at least we have a shot that he won't consider the maybes. He won't hold the defendant to an unfair standard or burden. burden that juries sometimes do, even though they're not supposed to, right? They want answers. They want the story, and the defense doesn't have the story here. So I think, you know, what we're seeing maybe is a bit of their Hail Mary pass decision to go bench trial. Again, I'm not so sure it'll work, but I think we're seeing strategically why that was chosen.
I think that's a great way to lay it out, that they had almost no shot with a jury, almost guaranteed, especially in this area where they all searched for this little girl for so long. But Brian, I want to add a witness to this for you, which you already said we've gotten pretty close to beyond a reasonable doubt for this judge. But there's a deceased witness who just died recently, but he would put this defendant by that pond at 4:30 in the morning and did not see Breasia. They're going to bring in that deposition. Does that get us all the way there if he is at this pond where she was later discovered?
Of course. Well, this isn't even a discussion. You'd have to bury your head in the sand to ignore what this evidence means. So he's outside at 3 o'clock in the morning with this missing child who was later found shot to death, and we're supposed to call that a maybe. It's not a maybe, respectfully. And then some other witness who probably doesn't even know him puts him at the pond where the body is found. This is a conviction. The guy's totally guilty. He's a sex offender. We know what happened here. You know, you'd have to totally put your blinders on and clog your ears and, you know, completely ignore reality to know what any of this means. It doesn't have to be direct evidence. This is the strongest circumstantial type of case you can have.
I love hearing both sides from you all. Thank you so much for your insight, your analysis. Stand by.